Hi, welcome to Career Talk with Laura. I'm Laura and I'll be talking about career advice, personal development, and all that good stuff. Please subscribe and turn on the notification button so you can get my latest updates. I was debating whether or not to film today because I got a pimple on my face, but then I realized you're here for my advice and not for my face, so hello. I received a question around how to answer general interview questions as well as behavioral questions. Thank you, Angela, for submitting your question. I want to preface this by reminding you that there are a lot of resources around these type of interview questions floating around on the internet. I recommend that you do your research and look at different sources. However, I do not recommend you trying to find a specific answer, the right answer on the internet, and then take that as a script for you to memorize for your interview. If you look like you're reciting a script during your interview, then the interviewer might doubt whether you are actually describing your own behavior or that you found a script to recite. Your answers should be authentic. Before I get into the details of how to answer behavioral questions, let me ask you a philosophical question. What drives human behavior? I believe that people are driven by their values. Now, how does this relate to answering behavioral questions? If you've wondered, what's the right way to answer this behavioral question so I can pass the interview? Well, I'm gonna have to tell you, there's no one right way. It really depends on what the employer values. If your values align, then you're a fit. But if they don't align, then you might not be very happy on the job anyway. For example, some employers might value individual contribution more than teamwork, while others will bias towards teamwork. So you should try to see what the employer values and whether they align with your values. Behavioral questions are a way to see your values, your personality, and your mindset, and whether or not you are truly what you describe yourself to be. For example, if you write that you're a team player on your resume, but then during the interview you show a negative attitude towards working with other people, then you're shooting yourself in the foot. Based on the job description or job requirements, you'll probably be able to find the key behaviors that are required to succeed on the job. Then you should expect that the behavioral questions on your interview will be around these key behaviors. For example, I'm going to use teamwork again. So if the job description says that you need to be a team player, then during the interview, you'll probably be asked about your experience working in a team. So when you get asked a behavioral question, you should try to identify what trait the interviewer is looking for, and then talk about your experience that demonstrates that trait. There are some common traits that employers look for. So I linked in the description box below some resources that talk about these common traits and the behavioral questions that are linked to these traits. If you don't have a particular trait yet, then I don't recommend that you make up a story just so you can say that you have that trait. Instead, you could talk about how you're working on developing that trait. When you're answering a behavioral question, it's like telling a story. You want your listener to empathize with you. There are 5 things that you should cover in your story. First, give background on the situation. What happened? Second, explain your thought process or your principle. What were you thinking? Third, describe the action that you took. What did you end up doing? Fourth, describe the result. What happened after you took action? Fifth, describe any learnings that you took away from this experience or how you would improve. This is important because sometimes you don't take the best action or you don't always get the best result. But if you show that you can learn from your experience, then that's always a plus.
Alright, so I forgot to film an example when I first filmed this. So here is an example with Mr. Penguin as the interviewer and Miss Bear as the interviewee. Mr. Penguin asks, "Tell me about a time you contributed effectively in a team." And Miss Bear responds, "Our team was involved in a model development project, and there were many components of the model to be developed. I was the coordinator of the project, and to maximize our efficiency, each of the teammates took on a major technical component to code in parallel. While the components were developed in parallel, the process would be run more or less linearly, so I knew I needed to make sure that the pieces line up. In order to have the pieces connect, the inputs and the outputs of each component needs to be clear. Also, we need to agree on how the inputs and the outputs are formatted. If a format is not easy to use down the road, then it would create extra work to reformat the output or to add more information. Hence, designing a standard format early on and keeping tabs of what information is required could reduce extra work down the road." I held design sessions with my teammates to define what is the expected input and output from each step and what is the best format to work with between each step. Whenever a teammate had a question or needed support for debugging, I was the central hotline. As a result, my teammates were able to deliver their components on time, and we were able to run the process fairly smoothly and rerun as needed like a model factory. This made exploring design variations and making adjustments very efficient. Being a modeler myself, at some point I wanted to take on a component and also have my own technical contribution. However, if every one of us was busy tackling our own component, we may not be able to spare the time to help each other out and remove roadblocks for each other. From this experience, I learned that instead of having an extra component being developed, if our components can actually connect smoothly into a product, that is a worthwhile trade-off. Generally, in your answers, you should 1. Show that you have reflected on your actions and that you take accountability for your actions. 2. Don't shit talk other people or blame them. You should be part of the solution, not the problem. If someone did do something wrong, you can factually describe the situation without putting judgments such as they're lazy or they're not careful enough. So those are my tips on how to answer behavioral questions. These are the things that I look for when I conduct interviews. I hope they work for you. Thanks for watching. Bye.